want you to tell me the very first things that you see or the very first impressions that you have.
The first thing I see is this tall, skinny tower-like building, and there's nothing around it. It's just all open, wide space for as far as I can see.
Take a look and tell me what the sky looks like in this place. What do you see?
Sort of orange. Um, there's some like thin gray clouds as well. Maybe like a deep sunset sky. I'm not sure. Or maybe a little more ominous than that. It's kind of a dark orange.
Mhm. Do you Are you able to see like a sun or a moon or anything in the sky creating that color?
I do not see anything other than these like thin gray clouds.
Very good. And so as you look at the land, what do you see?
It's very barren. It's rocky, very flat. It looks very dry. It's weird, this tall tower-like structure is just in the middle of nowhere.
And so does it feel like you can move towards this tower?
Yes.
Okay. And so as you allow yourself to move towards that tower, if you see any doors, any points of entry, what do you see?
There's some stone steps with an arched doorway, quite large, like really large. Um, I can walk through that.
Mhm. So allow yourself to move into that archway and tell me what you see.
It's so dark I could barely see anything.
Mm. I want you to just imagine that you are creating a light in this space, almost like you're holding a lantern in your hands, beginning to illuminate the space around you. Imagine it getting lighter and brighter. Tell me what you see now.
It looks like a small room, almost maybe like an entryway. Um, there's nothing in here. There's no furniture or um, windows, nothing. It's just a big empty space, and there's like some rocks and some debris on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any other doorways in
There's a
this room?
s- there's a staircase just over to the left. It looks like it spirals up.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel drawn to take that staircase?
I do.
Mm-hmm. Let's see where that staircase takes you. Tell me what you see next.
It looks like a big open room with like vaulted ceilings, um, like a really old architecture with a lot of like archways in this big space. It just looks empty and abandoned.
As you connect in even more deeply with this space, tapping fully into your inner knowing, do you get a sense of what this tower is, what it's used for, its purpose?
It feels like at one point there was a community here. The word kingdom comes to mind. Um, that it was thriving. But something happened and now it doesn't seem like there's anyone here, or at least anyone that I've seen yet.
Very good. Let's see if we can gain an understanding of what this community, this kingdom was all about. I want you to allow yourself to drift and float back through time and space, finding a point where this kingdom was thriving and full of community and connection. Be there now. Tell me where you are and what you see.
Wow, it's really pretty. Um, it's really green and there's a lot of like trees and forest and the sky is blue again. It just looks really pretty. And the tower it looks clean, it looks occupied. There's even um, like a tapestry with a coat of arms hanging above the main entryway.
Mm-hmm.
Can't quite make it out what it looks like, but I can see the outline.
And do you feel like you're still inside the tower?
I know I'm outside again.
Okay, outside. And tell me what the land looks like now. You said before it was very barren and rocky. What do you see now?
It's beautiful. It's really dense forest as far as the eye can see. Um, there's even water that surrounds the tower, like a little, I don't know how to describe it, maybe like a river. Um, it's really like crystal clear blue water, maybe like a spring, I think maybe. It just feels really clean, which is very different from what it looked like before.
What about people? Do you notice any people around this place?
I don't notice anyone, but it does feel peaceful here.
And
It
what
feels
about
isolated.
isolated? Do you get a sense of why it feels isolated?
It feels like anytime the inhabitants tried to get beyond like they could never get beyond the forest. It was just very thick and um they just couldn't get past it. So they remained in the only area that they knew.
So it feels like there are people who live in the forest, but they're unable to get to the tower. Is that correct?
Uh no, it feels like the people who live in the tower or in the immediate area surrounding it can't get past the forest. It feels like they've tried, but it's just too far for them to get out of it. It's as
Mm,
far as the eye can see from at the top of the tower.
I see. So, this tower, are there other buildings or structures around it, or is it just this tower there?
It's just this tower.
And as you connect in with this tower, are you able to get a sense of how many live within it?
Maybe around 50 people,
Mhm.
not very many. It feels like there used to be more, but being so isolated, people have passed on.
So, this tower is surrounded by dense forest that extends out for miles. There's no other structures, but it's very beautiful and clean. Let's see if we can go into the tower once again. See if we can understand what this community that exists there, what life is like for them. Tell me what you see now as you move back into this tower.
There's a lot of tapestries on the wall, um, minimal decoration, but carpets on the floor, a lot of like candles and fires lit to keep it warm and lit. It feels medieval, but not in the way that we understand it or know it from our history. It feels separate from that. Like
Mhm.
it's not another planet or anything like that. It just feels like another place in our world that we've never seen.
So it feels like this place exists on Earth, but maybe in another dimension or another space.
It feels like it's in another land area that we don't know about.
Mm.
If that's why it feels like they're so isolated.
And do those who are in this tower, do they feel that isolation? Do they know they're isolated, or does this just feel normal to them?
It feels normal to them, but they are curious to see if they're like what else is out there. They want to explore. It's just it's been difficult with minimal resources.
Let's move further into this tower to see what life is like for those who live there. Tell me what you see. What is day to day life like?
It seems like there is a group of people who, it's very much like a caste system. Those who are ruling and sort of in charge, and then the people who work there and things like that. That's what it feels like.
Mhm.
Starting to see people moving around, like cleaning, cooking, living.
And do you feel in this place that you have a body, or do you feel like you're simply observing?
It feels like I'm observing. I don't feel like I have a body. I look down, I don't see a body.
And so you said there are those that are there working, they're cleaning, they're cooking. Does it feel like there is anyone in charge or any type
Yes.
of hierarchy?
Yes. It feels like there's a group of people who are at the top of the hierarchy.
Mhm. To allow yourself to move forward and find where this group is located. Be here now and tell me what you see. Who is this group that's in charge?
It seems like they're maybe from three different families, um, and they represent the different generations. It's a big room, um, and the windows over, it's high up in the tower, so you can see all around, all um, like surround. It's almost like a watchtower room where you can see all around. It's interesting.
Mhm. What else do you see in this room? Are there any furnishings or anything that stands out to you?
It's very simple, but it's the architecture doesn't make sense to me because it looks like a stone medieval tower, but the windows look a little bit more modern. It's really strange.
Mm. And so these three families, do you get a sense of what their purpose is, what they're doing?
There seems to be a minor conflict about this exploration. It seems like half of them want to go try to explore, the younger ones do. Um, they feel really isolated and they'd like to go out and see what's out there. And then it seems like the older generations are, trying to discourage it, saying that they've tr they've tried in the past and were unsuccessful, and they're fearful they don't want to, lose their sons. That's what the conversation sounds like.
Mm. Do you get a sense as you tap in to these families, to this group, how it is that they got here in the first place? They always just been here? Did they come from somewhere else?
They've always just been here. This is the only place they've ever known, and they don't really know their history. It seems like the older generations don't like sharing information with the younger generations. It feels like if we keep them in the dark, then, we can keep them safe.
And tell me what happens next. They're discussing the possibility of venturing out. What happens with this discussion? What do they decide to do?
There's one figure that senses my presence. It's really strange.
What do they look like?
They look human. He's an older man. He has like long white hair. Um, has like a fur cloak on. Looks almost like a Viking, but not. It doesn't. That's the best comparison I can just like the best way I can describe the way he looks.
Mhm. And you said he senses your presence. So tell me how you perceive that.
It's strange. I don't feel like I have a body, but he keeps looking over his shoulder where I'm standing. He senses something is there.
Hmm.
Whatever I am in this place, he knows I'm here.
Mm. Do you feel like you can connect with him telepathically and speak with him?
Hmm, I think so.
Hmm.
He seems to want to wait till no one's around.
Okay. Okay. So, what else is important to know about the scene that you're looking at? Is there anything else we need to understand here?
Just that these people exist or did exist at some point, um, and their existence has been kept hidden.
Mm. Is there something important to understand about these particular people and their existence?
They're not the only ones. There are others like them in other places that we're unaware of, and they live very isolated lives. It's almost as if they are excluded from our world for for a reason or on purpose. I'm seeing this aerial view, um, like a living map of landscapes, and I see these like big land masses similar to I think what we know as our world, and then outside of that there are these little, or not little, but they look big, islands in places in other, it just looks like other areas outside of what we know.
Mm. So, do you mean if you were looking at our globe, maybe places where we don't have land masses, these would exist?
Yes, and even beyond what we know.
When you say beyond what we know, are you able to explain that at all?
It seems like it just feels like there's more land than we're told there is.
Mhm.
It
Does
feels
it?
like it feels like the map is not accurate, like that, and we only can go where we know based on the maps that we have. So it feels like this is different.
Mm. Does it feel like this could be a almost like a separate version of Earth, maybe superimposed or overlaid upon ours? Or does
No,
it feel like it's just hidden?
it feels hidden. It it just feels it's beyond what we know. That's the best way to describe it.
Hmm.
We're told this is the land of our world, but there's more than that.
Hmm. Let's move forward, just closing out this scene that you're looking at, and let's move forward and find a point in time where you can connect with this older man who appears like a Viking, finding a place where you can connect with him and be there now. And I want you to connect mind to mind and ask him what it is that we need to understand today about this place where they are. What does he know? What can he share?
He knows we exist, and others like him know we exist, but that's what they're trying to keep hidden from their younger generations because they fear if the younger generations try to explore, then they'll be harmed in some way, shape, or form. Not by people like us, but there are others that would want to harm them for leaving their designated area.
Mm. And so, how is it that he has this awareness? Can he share that with you?
It's passed on through the generations from one elder to the next. Like the before the oldest, I guess, tribe member passes, he will share this information with the person he knows will be his successor. And those are the only two people that know. It's that they keep it very quiet.
And so, if the younger generations were to go exploring into the forests, is it through the forest that leads them out into this world as we know it? How does that work?
It's different in different areas. So their particular lands are surrounded by forest. There are others that are surrounded by water. It it almost looks like different, I guess, islands, so to speak, or it's just really strange to describe it. The land masses look very different than what we see on a modern day map. And he's saying the world is not what you believe it to be.
Can he share more about that? What would he like us to know today?
That we're all kept separate for a reason. Um, he's not really forthcoming. Let me
Mm-hmm.
try this a different way. He's only saying that there's a reason why we all have to remain isolated from each other, and exploration is not encouraged. It's, he's saying it's for your safety as well as ours.
And he says it's for our safety. Can he help us to understand that?
He's saying that our kind, I guess the people who live in our world are not ready to, most are not ready to learn the I guess the truth of what lies beyond and tap into our gifts. They live that way. It's very much a part of their everyday life, and not everyone um, wants to embrace our human gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Can he maybe help us to understand what types of gifts that his people hold?
He's laughing. He's saying it's beyond your comprehension, but telepathy is one of them. Um, thanks for being condescending. Um, he's well, I guess he's sort of lightening up. He's saying, we're not all that different. It's just uh our kind has embraced technology and theirs has not. And
Mm,
that is why our worlds are so very different. He's saying it's like you're trapped and all the technology that you use keeps you trapped. If you were to let it go and or if it was taken away from you, you wouldn't have any other choice but to embrace your true human gifts. Your world would be very different if you embraced that.
Mhm. So, can he help us to understand these different places that are hidden from us? Is it simply because they hold a different vibration, less technology, less entrapment? Why is it they're hidden and we don't know that they exist?
He's saying it's simply control. It's just it's they're in control of their own world, and as long as they don't interfere with anyone else, they remain safe to live how they choose. But because their leaders are kind, benevolent people versus what we have, and that's what he feels is sadly the problem.
Mm.
Your he's saying your world lacks true leadership. True leaders are kind and compassionate. And he's
Yeah.
saying, yes, that seems contradictory to be strong and powerful, yet kind and benevolent. You can do it.
So, does he have an awareness since his kind are very tapped into their gifts and abilities? Are they able to observe us from where they are? Are they able to tap in and know what's happening in our world?
Yes. In his tribe, the elder is the one who has the gift of remote viewing. So he can do that whenever he chooses.
Mhm,
And he says he does it frequently to know what's happening around him.
mhm. And would he mind sharing his perspective of where we are at this moment with all the different things we're going through at this time to try and raise our consciousness?
He think he thinks our world as a whole is awful, and he's glad he doesn't live here. But he can appreciate those of us who are seeking higher levels of consciousness despite all the chaos and technology and distraction around us. And he says it would truly happen faster if you were completely removed from all technology. And he knows that's pretty much impossible for most people in our world.
Mm. Does he ever, is he, when he remote views, does he remote view just in the time space where he is, or is he able to move ahead and see future outcomes? How does that work for him?
Hmm, that seems like a touchy question. He says he can do both, but he doesn't seem, again, he doesn't seem like he wants to share.
Mhm. Does he see a positive outcome? Does he see a time where we release the hold that technology has on us? And
He's saying what he can share is this, that it's a choice for those of us who want to fully embrace technology. versus those of us who do not. And there will come a time where there is a very definitive shift in society. Those who choose to be plugged in, and they're going to live closer and closer to one another and only associate with one another, and they will create their own mini worlds. And those of us who choose the path of higher consciousness and to disconnect will be able to retreat in nature. And he's saying that that's what will help our nature rejuvenate. It may be difficult at first, but once you get past that adjustment period, you will experience much more happiness.
So what could he share with us today to help those who listen to this information? What can he share with us about the way that his community lives that might help us to make positive changes here in our reality?
He's saying our community is small but very connected, very in sync, despite some of the younger generations having the itch to explore. They do respect the elders' decision to prohibit that action, and he he feels at some point they will have to have full disclosure with everyone in their tribe. But he's suggesting for those of us who choose to live more in alignment with the way they do, is it's all about community and who you surround yourself with and spend time with, and do what you can every day to release your dependency on technology a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And so the timelines that we were talking about, where those who want technology will move more in that direction, and those who want more nature will move in that direction, will that create a separation almost like where he is, where one becomes invisible to the other? Is it similar to that? One way of living becomes separated completely.
S- Similar in that the technology lovers will increasingly become, they will choose to isolate themselves more and more. And he's showing me, it almost looks like well, that's really cool. Um, it's almost like a aerial dark map of our world, and the black dark areas are where we will be, the higher conscious nature lovers, and areas that are like lit up with light are the technology lovers, and it looks like they're concentrated in areas around the world. And over time, it's just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller for them.
Mm,
So at some point, there will be an expansion where nature completely rejuvenates and we unplug from the technology because we realize how harmful it is to our bodies, to our souls, to the animals, to the plants, everything, our whole ecosystem.
mm. So, does he have a sense of there being a difference between technology that is harmful and technology that is maybe more positive and beneficial? Is that something that we will have, that higher technology? Does he see that?
It can be useful if you choose. He's saying at first, probably no, that it's going to be more primitive and perhaps eventually you will get back into the higher technology, but the purpose is uh, people like us need a full detox from all technology in order to really reset our bodies. He's saying you forget you're an animal too, and your body needs to heal itself, just like any other animal in nature needs to heal when harmful things are imposed upon you. Yeah, he's kind of a smart ass because if he said just come back here, my cooks will show you how to cook over a fire. I don't know why he said that, but that was funny.
Well, I would love to know because this place that we're looking at, they all live in this one tall, skinny tower. Does that hold all of them? Do they ever expand outside of that? Or they're
They
such a small community?
They're such a small community. They enjoy living. It's pretty big. It's a massive tower.
Hmm.
They have small structures in the woods, it looks like for um like food storage and things like that. But um no, they mostly just enjoy nature for what it is, and they have the structure to live in to keep them safe from the elements, and they're fine. The spring provides them all the water and fresh fish they need, so he said we're content here.
Wonderful. And so, do they have animals similar to what we have? Is it a little different?
He's saying it's similar animals, a variety may be different or like variation of the species, but in essence, it's the same.
And do you?
He's
Oh, go
showing me
ahead.
their deer are a little bit bigger um, and more majestic looking than our deer. They look more like reindeer but bigger.
Mm.
So that's an example because he's saying our animals have not been exposed to the toxicity of your world, so they get bigger and he thinks prettier.
So, have they just always existed? Or is there a point in time where they began? Does he have an awareness of that?
He's saying at one point, very far back in history, uh, all of our worlds were known, but that over time, those in control of the different areas have increasingly isolated us, not us humans in the modern world.
Hmm. It's almost like those who are the controllers of this world, they took control of certain places, and that created the separation between these other worlds or these other places.
Yes, he's saying that's exactly it. And they took advantage after a cataclysmic event, and that's when they seized control.
Can you tell us what that cataclysmic event was?
He said there was at one point a massive deluge of water, and then everything got frozen. And then as it slowly melted, that ice was the initial perimeter because it was so cold and people couldn't maneuver around it. That's he's saying is all he knows.
Mm.
What he learns when he remote views. So he's still learning as well.
Mm.
He's saying even though our world looks different, we live in the same time. So weird.
Mm. So, does he have an awareness of these other places that are also hidden? Is he able to remote view them as well?
Yes, he goes everywhere. He says he can.
And are their lives in these other places similar to theirs, or is there a difference depending on where you are looking at?
He's he's saying it's different depending upon where. Um, Weather conditions will change. He lives in a colder climate. He's showing some other places he's remote viewed. It looks very tropical, almost like Polynesian, South Pacific like.
Mm.
So those areas are warmer, they live differently.
So, is there any way for them to travel, maybe not amongst our world, but amongst those other worlds? Do they have things like portals or any ways of moving from place to place?
He's saying in his area that ability vanished a long time ago, and for unknown reasons, he doesn't know. He has had some visitors from other places, but most are too afraid to travel outside of their own little world. They fear entrapment as well, so they keep to themselves.
Yes. And so, is there any possible way that those who are trying to control and are controlling us, are they trying to find? Does he have an awareness that they're trying to find these other places, or are they safely hidden and protected?
He's saying they know of those in control of our world have full awareness of all these other places, but it's beyond their area of control, so they can't interfere in any way. So they almost have this like energetic boundary. It feels very much like we here in our world are in a fishbowl, and
Mm.
everything that's outside of the fishbowl can't be touched.
Nice. So when we first came in to this scene, you were seeing an empty building with an orange sky. Can he help us to understand why the scene looked like that? What happened?
He is saying that he has seen that scene himself too, which has caused him great concern. That is a potential for many years into the future for them as well as us. And it has all to do with the technology that we use in our world, all types of technology that he feels no human should ever be using. It's not of high integrity or even of this world.
Mm.
And so he's fearful of that potential reality.
And this technology is this, we have like our phones and our computers and all sorts of technology like that, but then we also have technology around war like devices. Is it more of the war-like devices?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And even more dangerous of these potential technologies inserted into the body because it changes the person. And so he feels that's the most fearful component is he hopes that people will refuse to put this technology in their body. That's he sees as the first step towards this eventual reality as humans change their bodies and accept this foreign technology into them, they change fundamentally, and then they will make different choices that could potentially harm all of us.
Mm. Does he have a deeper understanding of what this technology that's being like these chips that are being placed in the body, are they taking over? How are they taking over the body? Is it separating the consciousness from the physical body, or does he have an understanding of what's happening there?
It's almost he's showing me an image of like a parasitic infection. When a parasite takes over the host animal loses all control, and the parasite has controls your thoughts, your actions, your body, everything. And that's essentially what he's saying this technology is. It's like a parasite in the human body.
And so we're having this technology actually be implanted into us, even in other ways, like through vaccines and things like that. Does he have an awareness of that as well?
Yes, he's saying that's where it starts, but it has gotten so much worse than that. Um, with the brain implants, especially, he fears that is the final step in the direction of devastation.
Mm. Is there anything that he can share or that he's seen about the brain implants, how they work, how they affect us? What what can he share about that?
It's almost as if you're trapped in your own body. Your consciousness is trapped and it has no control over what it's saying, what the body is saying or doing, and that's torture for the soul inside the body. And he's saying that's why we have no desire to change the way we live. Those who control your world have propositioned us and mo most likely other uh, tribes and kingdoms in the world that if you embrace our way of living, we will, we will welcome you. And he's saying we don't want to be welcomed. We're just fine where we are. Thank you.
I would agree with that. Stay right where you are. Was there anything else from his remote viewing of this place where we are? Anything that he can share with us to help those of us who are trying to make positive changes in this world? Anything that he's seen? or nose.
Integrity. Always live your life with integrity because that will lead you in the direction that's best for your well-being. And make small changes every day to remove technology from your life in as many ways as you can. He's saying he knows this is the hardest thing for us to do because we're so dependent upon it, but uh, it's fundamental for those of us who uh, don't want to be a part of that world. There's going to be a very clear divide between those who fully embrace the technology versus those of us who don't. And they're using new inventions to tempt people even more with the virtual reality, um, the computer programs that do your work for you. All he's saying there's just so much, and that leads down. It's not. Um, I don't know how to express what he's trying to say, but it's not in alignment with those of us who want to live in harmony with nature.
Mhm.
They can't coexist.
And so, how is it that we were able to connect with him today in this place? Does he have an understanding of that?
Telepathically, he will allow select few individuals who choose um, to take these explorations to connect.
And does this happen often where he has visitors like us drop in?
Not often, but he welcomes them when they come.
Wonderful. And what was it that allowed us to be able to enter this place that's so protected?
He's saying it's my personal curiosity of what's possible.
Wonderful. And is there anything else that he'd like to share with us today?
Just that he would welcome us if he could.
We
He
would
would.
love to come visit. It sounds beautiful.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Wonderful. Well, we would just like to thank this gentleman for allowing us to ask questions and bring forward this information. We are very appreciative.
He's saying his name is Armand.
Armand, it's very lovely to meet you today. We will just allow you to close out that scene that you're looking at. Let's begin with why Kim was taken to this place. What did she need to see today? What was important to know?
She's long been curious of of potential life and land outside of the world you know and what's beyond the famous ice wall. And so that is why she was shown that today.
And so I know there's a lot of us that are curious about what actually is behind that ice wall. Is there an ice wall that exists? Is there land out there that we're unfamiliar with? What can you share with us today?
Yes, a there is an ice wall. It's not as big as you are told, and some of the images she was shown today were like an aerial view, and that is what she experienced. She could see beyond that and see these other lands beyond your limited world.
Mm. When she was talking, I was almost thinking of these places being like where our oceans are. So, where we don't have land, but maybe they're in those spaces. But you're talking that they exist even in a different space than we have awareness of.
Yes, beyond that.
And so, is this something that is accessible to anyone? Obviously, we accessed it. We were able to go there during the session. Are people able to go to these places?
They may with remote viewing and such, but not physically. That is prohibited.
And so, if these those that live in these places, are they able, if they wanted to, they probably do not, but are they able to come into our reality?
No, that is also prohibited.
Okay.
There's a very clear boundary between your worlds.
And so this split that we're going through, that we were speaking with Armand about, where there are people that are going off towards the technology driven way of living and those moving more back into nature. Is that going to become similar to what we saw today, where those two don't even sort of exist in the same space? Very different worlds.
That is correct. It will be two very different worlds. Those who choose the technology path won't leave their areas, and those who choose the path of nature and consciousness will move to their areas. And neither one will have any desire to go to the opposite area. Eventually those who live in these technology zones won't know that anything exists outside of it. So they will lose all memory of the natural world versus those who choose to remain in nature and embrace that will know it's there. You'll very much have the awareness of it, but it will be far removed from where you choose to settle.
And so those that take the path of technology, do they just continue on, or does that technology end up destroying them?
Eventually, it will destroy them because they will no longer be human.
Mm.
They will turn into something else, and that can't sustain.
And so it's been discussed in other sessions that those beings known as the Greys were once human, but made choices to disconnect from their humanity. Did they go the way of technology? Did that have anything to do with shifting them into who they became? Or is that different?
It's similar but different. That is many, many, many years into a probable future versus what is happening now with this shift in implementing new technology. What's happening now is more subtle um, in the way it enters the body.
What can you share with us today about this technology that's being implemented? What to look for, what to understand about it? What can we share with those who are listening?
Just be cautious what you choose to put in your body. And as Armand mentioned, do your best to limit your technology exposure every day. Some examples could be not using electrical lights in the evening. Use candles instead. It sounds simple, but most people would struggle with that. Just that one change. So it's not an easy transition, but it can be done.
It was discussed recently in my Quantum Soul Portal group about even using glasses with different colored lenses, like red or orange, in the evening to sort of shift the blue light that we take in. And you mentioned the lights that we have around us. How does that affect us having all of those lights, those screens, those devices?
You're not in sync with nature when you are exposed to artificial light, which is why it's so important to spend as much time outside as you can. It's understandable that at this time with your work and your jobs, you have to use it, but do your best to limit it and try to reset your body. It's your circadian rhythm that gets affected by these artificial lights. Your body doesn't truly repair itself while you're sleeping if you've had too much artificial light exposure. That's part of the reason why there are so many people who have difficulty sleeping. The flicker of the light bulbs are also um, overstimulating for the body.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. As we were speaking with Armand, we were talking about leadership and how their leaders are connected and they work together for the greater good of the whole. We are going through some interesting things with our own elections and upcoming um, presidential talk and chatter. Is there anything that you can share with us today about what's happening from your perspective? What we need to know about what's to come?
There will always be one choice that seems better than the other. And the way your world is organized and controlled, you will always feel like you have to choose between these different options. But in reality, you don't have to make those decisions. You can choose something completely different, and that is to remove yourself from that way of living.
Mm.
You can control yourself. No other human has the right to control you. In Armand's world, there are leaders, but they're co-leaders. There isn't one person who feels stronger than the others. And his tribe doesn't try to rule any of the other tribes outside of your world. They respect each other's independence. Uh, and the nature of the world they live in, yes, they do live very isolated versus where you live. It's very different where you do interact more with the different tribes of your world. And so someone is always trying to be in control of that when you really can only control yourself.
There are many of us who are feeling more and more of a pull to be free, to make our own choices and decisions. But these things in our society are so deeply, deeply ingrained in us, especially our election. We go to the polls, we pick which one we think is going to be better. How do we move away from that? How do we let that go and let go of the fear of what might happen if we don't do as we've been programmed to do?
That type of change takes time, and it will take a lot of time for this modern world that you live in. You can choose to just not go to the poll and not engage. There will be many people who make this choice. That's their choice. And then there will be many people who choose to go and cast their vote, and that's their choice. Everyone has a choice, and one is not necessarily better than the other. It's what's best for the individual and how they feel and how it affects their everyday life.
So, if you were able to tap into a possible potential for the outcome of this election, is there anything you can share um, about where this is going to take us next?
Lots of turmoil. There's going to be turmoil regardless of who wins. Is there ever really a winner? Uh, it's hard to say. There will be turmoil regardless of the outcome because most people are choosing to engage with the turmoil.
Mm,
The only way to change your reality is to completely disengage. And we understand that's a bit of a contradiction. As you expressed, you feel compelled to do what you've always done. And if I don't make this choice or if I don't, go cast my vote, then I'm not doing my duty. So we understand where you're coming from. But in order for the the big shift that people want to see happen, different choices could be made to help usher in that bigger change.
hmm And so, as people make a different choice, let's say decide for the first time ever, I'm not going to vote for either one, how does that shift the energy and the experience on this planet?
You're not feeding the energy, they're not taking it from you, and you step out of that cycle, that toxic cycle of allowing or giving your power away to somebody else.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because that's been coming up quite a bit for me lately. Things that I've been working on and sharing with others is taking back your power. Tell us from your perspective, what does that mean for each person to take back their power so that they can shift their reality?
We feel the first step is having accountability for your own well-being rather than putting it on an external person, thing, uh, whatever it is that you're trying to change in your reality. It starts with you. And by making decisions that are best for your personal well-being, by having accountability for yourself, you're keeping that power within.
Wonderful. And so, again, it's been said that we are moving more and more into a time where it's going to be a little more chaotic. There are many that are still feeling a lot of fear, what's to come, what's going to unfold. What can you share with us today to help us move through the chaos without allowing it to affect us?
Be Do your best to prepare yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually for any potential outcome. And that's going to be different for every individual. That may be just getting uh, into a mental space where you accept whatever is going to happen, and that may work for one person. Another person may feel they need to prepare more to surround themselves with an intentional community and to keep people, their loved ones and their friends closer to them so they feel support. It really depends on the individual and what is best for that person. We would encourage as much community as possible. That's really where you're going to feel the strongest.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So, during our last election, we had a nice little outbreak that took over the world. And we are approaching another election season. Is there anything from your perspective that you can see heading our way as a distraction to try and veer us off to a different path? Anything that you can share with us today?
Yes, we say be prepared for a very similar situation. It may not happen the way the powers that be want it to, but we do say be prepared for that to be a potential in your near future.
And so the last time we went through this, there, of course, was a lot of fear. There was a lot of control being forced onto people to do things that they didn't want to do. Can you share with people, again, staying with that theme of taking back your power? What do they need to know when something like this happens to not give their power away?
You can simply say no, thank you. And you're stronger when you're surrounded with your community. So anyone who has fear or worry about what may come, we suggest to surround yourself with your community so that you can lean on each other during a potentially difficult time. We do feel that there is so much awareness since the last situation that it would be very different this time. And we do have awareness that they have tried to create certain rules and regulations to supersede human sovereignty and body sovereignty and even your rights as a human. And we feel that there is potential for that to, let's say, not go the way they hope. There is uh, legal repercussions. what they're trying to do seems very far-reaching, and it can have a negative effect on certain countries, but others have a bit more independence and sovereignty, and they will be able to legally sidestep if they choose. And the individual person always has the option to not participate.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So many are believing right now that we're playing out the book of Revelations. Like we're in that time period that is discussed in the Bible. We're experiencing our plague of 2020 and all of the wars that are happening around the world. And there's even talk again of new things cropping up here and there. Are we in that time period that was brought forward then? And is there anything that you can tell us about where we are in that timeline?
Yes, you are in the first quarter of that timeline. And the thing to remember is that time is cyclical. So the world that you live in exists on a continuum of cycles. And so you're coming to the end of this current cycle. There'll be a cataclysmic event, and then you'll have a reset and essentially go back to the beginning and start all over.
So you said we'll have a cataclysmic event and start over, but I understand that many of us are ascending to a higher dimension. So does that affect, how does that work?
Yes, those of you who are on that path and who have reached that awareness within don't come back for the reset. So it's those souls who haven't worked through all of that, who haven't walked the path of self-realization to self-actualization, they're the ones that come back.
And that is all by their soul's choosing. Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Um, so to a certain degree, you have to you have to reach a certain point so that you can ascend, so that you can not come back to this place that you're in.
Mm.
And until you reach that place, the soul just keeps coming back. They get it eventually.
Mhm. So we've been existing in the third dimension, which is the place where we come to learn a lot of lessons and go through challenges for soul growth. So those that come back to continue their journey, my understanding is that it won't be quite as hard as it is now. Is that correct? Are we lifting even the third dimension up a bit where it's not quite such a challenge, or how do you see that?
Yeah, that's a possibility. How to say this? Yes, the your energy does have the collective energy as you shift and your perceptions of things change, the world around you changes. So it does make it a little bit easier. So the souls that do come back through these cyclical resets may not necessarily have an easier time, but the path of awakening and realization happens quicker.
After our last session, which was a while ago, um, Kim learned about the false white light and it really affected her. And I see it popping back into our reality here and there. False light. What can you share with us about that? What do we need to know? Maybe how does it apply to her? Was there a lesson there or something she needed to understand?
For her personally, it was very much, how do we say this? Energetic manipulation during a very difficult time for her. She was being taken advantage of energetically. So they were essentially trying to take her off her path, and they did a pretty good job of it for a while, to instill a lot of fear there. And that's just one of the many um, negative tactics that those who are in that fourth dimensional space, um, and even beyond, can do to those of you who are incarnated here. It's a very manipulative energy.
Maybe you could explain a little bit more about how that happens. Now, she was in a challenging place where her mother had passed, so her vibration, of course, was probably lowered and her defense is down a little bit. How do they come through and manipulate? How does that work?
Well, they're always lingering. And so when they see an opportunity when someone is essentially defenseless like that, they just come on in and take advantage. So they do their best to manipulate things that you're exposed to, your reality, your feelings, and they take advantage when you're in a position like that. And it could be grief, it could be um, stress, really extreme form of stress, drug use, alcohol use, anything that really puts you into an altered state. And stress can do that, grief can do that, substances can do that. Anything like that is makes you vulnerable.
And so, if someone is in that vulnerable state, they're going through a difficult experience in their life, and they start to get these negative thoughts and feelings. Maybe it's starting to take them off their path. This belief that they had, all of a sudden, they're thinking, oh, that may not be true, or maybe there's something false about that. How can they protect themselves in that state?
There are a few ways you can. We feel that the best way is always through community, and this is a big reason why we are such huge advocates for and will always suggest surrounding yourselves within community and why it's so important. When you're going through a difficult time, you need people around to to lean on and to lift you up. And when you know you have that support, you're not as vulnerable. And so people who may Kim didn't have support, a lot of support during that time. So that was, I think, a big reason why that it affected her the way that it did. And it would affect somebody differently who would maybe lean on substances or something like that in their time of difficulty. It just makes you more vulnerable.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. So, back talking about the book of Revelations, and it has been said that there is the possibility of a false holographic savior experience, Jesus coming back as a hologram. Is that something that you see still as a potential timeline or anything that you can share with us about that?
We feel at this point in time, uh, anything's a possibility. There's so much happening constantly. Things that are in your awareness, things that are not in your awareness. That is a potential. A average potential. One more tool in the in the tool belt of those who control. It's just one more tool of manipulation that they use.
Very good. But do you feel that most of us who are holding a higher consciousness most will be able to see through that? Do you get a sense more will
Yes.
be able to see through it than fall for it?
Yes. And as more information comes out about these like fake holographic simulations and things that happen, the less likely people will believe it. What if or when it does happen?
Very good. I want to go back to the idea of cycles because I've definitely noticed cycles of time that sort of are you're becoming more aware of a cycle starting and ending, and then a new cycle starting and ending. Can you explain that to us a little bit more? Is it just always continual cycles that we're moving through? How does that work?
Yes. Yes, your world is cyclical in its nature. It could you perhaps elaborate on your question more specifically, or are you wanting just general about the earth?
Well, let's ask this. So, we go through as humans cycles of experiences, let's say, and it almost seems as if you have to complete a cycle or complete an experience, or maybe even if you're going through a challenge and you continue to cycle through that same challenge through different experiences, it's almost as if you have to complete the lesson or the learning to move to the next higher cycle.
Yes,
Is
that is
that
exactly it.
okay? And so, is that controlled by, is that just how our reality is? Is it controlled by our astrology?
It's
It's
the soul's
interesting.
evolution.
Okay.
So everyone's cycle will be different based on the individual soul's evolution
Okay.
and how they move through that path to self-actualization.
Hmm. Okay. So, Kim had asked, is history a continuous reset? Meaning, does humanity keep experiencing the same cycles of history with each reset? Do we just start over or do we move to the next level? Does that work?
It keeps resetting over and over and over again until the creator or what is outside or whatever it is that's outside of your world. We are hesitant to give too much information on this subject because we know that everybody has their own beliefs and we don't want to interfere with anyone's journey. But those cycles will continue until this reality collapses. And that looks different for everyone based on their personal beliefs because your beliefs create your reality.
What does a reality collapse look like?
Like you've reached the end of the video game and it's done. And then your soul moves on to the next experience. If you're still here, if you haven't ascended out and completed your own cycle and you're still here when this reality collapses, then you're just essentially, you know, ejected from it.
Hmm. And so, those souls who are still playing this game when the reality collapses, where do they go? What happens to them?
They go to the life between life experience and they'll probably spend some time healing. There'll be a lot of confusion there because they haven't come to that realization in their lifetime. So when they exit, it's a little bit more confusing for them versus someone who already has that knowledge and accepts it prior to the end of life.
Mhm. Does it feel like we're close to that collapse, complete collapse of this reality, or do we still have a good ways to go?
From what we can see, it seems like there's still a good ways to go.
Okay. And so some people say that um, this reality that we're living, even though it feels very physical and real to us, is more like a dream. Is that what you feel from your perspective, or how could you describe this physical human life? Is it real? Is it a dream?
When you cross over and end your physical existence here, and your soul, and you are pure consciousness as a soul, it very much feels like a dream.
Mm.
Like you had a 5 minute nap and you woke up, and what was that? That's generally the response after that happens, uh, which is very strange for those who are still incarnated and have all of their senses activated and living this very physical world that you have. So it's both. It's a very physical reality that you're in because that's your perception of it. And then when you come out of it, it feels very much like a dream.
Mm. A 5 minute nap, huh?
A very quick power nap.
Oh, I think we wish. Wonderful. What can you share with us about, we hear about the financial system. The financial system has to collapse. It's collapsing. Those of us who are working on our ascension are wanting to move into a place of more freedom, free of the constraints of money. What can you tell us about where we are, what's happening now with our financial system, where we're headed?
It cannot sustain the way it's been going on. So you'll have a replacement system as a sort of interim monetary system to help transition into a world without it. And that would have to be very gradual over time because, if everybody woke up tomorrow and there was no currency, nobody would know how to function. Well, how am I going to buy food? How am I going to get compensated for my work? How am I going to buy my car or put gas in my car? It's those everyday habits and experiences that would shift completely, and that's going to have to take some time.
Wonderful. And does it feel like gold and silver? We know that they have been massively suppressed on this planet. Those
Yes.
currencies coming back, and what can you share?
Yes, they are gaining popularity, and uh, we feel that over time that will be that along with the the cryptocurrencies will be the first step in getting out of your traditional monetary system, and you'll go crypto. And then when this shift happens between those who want to embrace technology versus those who don't, that's when you'll see the separation. So those who wish to embrace technology will be all crypto and live in their own isolated worlds where they don't have anything tangible, versus those of you who choose to be at one with nature. Gold and silver will be your monetary system until it eventually dies out, because that population will realize you don't need currency to survive. You take care of each other, and that's all that matters. Your lives won't be as they are now, and that's what's so difficult for most people to comprehend a completely different world. And those who love technology think, I don't want to go back to that primitive lifestyle, and that's their choice. Um, they can enjoy all the technology that will be offered, but those who don't will be living a very different lifestyle. You won't need a job the way you were used to working. Your job will be providing for your family, for your community, and you'll be so connected spiritually and with with nature. that's your world. So it's very difficult for someone today to think, wow, that I would want that, or that's even possible. It'll be a gradual shift towards that, slow steps, but that's the big separation that's going to happen. And you'll see it begin in the financial system.
And you said crypto was sort of this part of this in between space. Well, that's really for those moving more towards the technology, is what you said, though,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, because I know a lot of people are looking into crypto as other options, but it's so hard to tell what is of the light and maybe
Yeah.
is any of it of the light or are there
It
goods and bads to it right now? What would you
it's
say?
it's neutral as of now. We see it as neutral as of now. It's wonderful for people who understand it and use it to maintain their sovereignty. You can make money with it if you choose. However, there will come a time where they need to decide which path they want to stay on. And is it going to be the technology path or the living in harmony with nature and ascension path? And if you're choosing the ascension path, then you you can't have crypto in that world. You'll have to let that go and embrace living in harmony with nature.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we know that this reality is a simulation, or at least that's what we're told. Can you help us to understand what exactly does that mean?
The best way we can describe it is the video game scenario because that's what most people understand. So it's stuck in a loop. We're showing Kim an example from her childhood because that's the only video game she knows. So it's like playing Mario Brothers.
Hmm.
So funny. When you when you complete the game, you start over again. And you keep starting over again. You could go through the whole game, you win the game, but then you come right back to the beginning. And it's a little different the second time or third time you play it, but it's on a constant loop. And that's essentially what the simulation is until it collapses.
So would you say those different games where we're coming back in, would that be like the different lifetimes that we choose to play out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so are there other simulations? Okay, so let me back up. Is it just our Earth world that is the simulation? We know there are other galaxies and other planets, other universes out there. Is it just Earth that acts as a simulation, or are there others? Or is everything a simulation?
Not everything is a simulation. The simulation of Earth is superimposed over the real Earth. So it's two separate realities. How do we explain this? And there are other simulations throughout the universe. They're just, every simulation is different. And when you come to the other side of it, once you finally ascend as a human on Earth, once you reach self-actualization and you are unplugged from your Earth simulation, you have the opportunity to go somewhere else. You could go to the real Earth, you could go to other places in time and space. That's your choice as a soul.
So when you say the real Earth, explain what that's like compared to what we're living in now.
What we're living in now is like a copy of the real Earth. The real Earth doesn't have the corruption and the darkness controlling it. So it's more pure and a more spiritual experience.
And so, would that Earth be what we are calling New Earth, those working towards getting to that Earth, or is that even separate from the original?
It's one and the same.
And so, can you share with us at all how did a copy get made that became infected or became dark? How did that happen?
Control. The There has always been a smattering of darkness on Earth, and uh, when the entities realized that they could manipulate reality, and the more they manipulated reality, the more they could control. That's essentially when the simulation was created.
Was that created by those dark controllers, or was that created by the creator to move us maybe away, like as a separation?
The creator entrapped them. They, so let's back up. The entities created the simulation in essence, and then the creator entrapped them here. And so it's hard to explain. How can we say this better? Think of it as a computer program. Your Earth was the hard drive of a computer, and uh, all the different programs are installed on the computer, and one file is corrupt. You have to isolate that file so it doesn't corrupt the other ones on your computer. And that's what happened with this particular simulation. The file was getting corrupt because the entities were learning how to manipulate it. And so the creator then essentially trapped them to where they couldn't come out and couldn't do it in any other way. And so that's when this cyclical simulation started. And it's just going to keep playing out over and over and over again until it collapses. And that collapse could be divine intervention, or when every human self-actualizes and the whole construct collapse.
Is that what many people are thinking of as the shift? Many are thinking that there's going to be this big flash of light or this big event that's going to completely shift them into that new world experience. Is that the collapse of this reality, or is even that a little different?
That's a little different. We feel those who believe in this shift are thinking more of a perhaps divine intervention or a cataclysmic event where the entire planet implodes. We don't see that happening. We see it very differently because we can see the separation between the real, true Earth and this imposed simulation. And uh, perhaps those who feel that flash of light and the exit of the soul, sometimes we say sometimes that is what death feels like for someone. It's difficult for a soul having a human experience to remember or understand what it feels like to just be a soul again, because you're very much in your physical reality, in your physical body.
So, is that what many people are thinking of as the two world split or the earth split? It's literally that overlay, the corrupted part being pulled away from the original earth.
Yes, that is correct.
So, help us to understand maybe the difference between, so we can connect with beings in other dimensions and other realities, um, Pleiadians, Arcturians, different beings that exist. Is their reality what you would call a more organic reality, where ours is that simulation?
Yes, there is. There's is a more organic reality similar to the real Earth versus the simulation and other simulations throughout the universe or universes, multiverse.
And so those simulations that are out there, are they similar to ours where there were just dark controllers who came in to control them and took over? Or is it even different based on each simulation?
Every simulation is different. There are some where there is a similar dark presence, but every simulation is very different from one another.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Kim and I had a session a couple of years back called It Will Be Huge. That was an amazing session with so much information that came through. We talked a lot about this sort of volcano, this rising of energy. Are we still in that energy? Are we moving towards it? Are we in a
Well,
completely different volcano?
now that that event has taken place, we can elaborate more. That was the recent event with your preferred leader that happened. We don't want to say it uh, as clear as you might like it to be said, but it has to do with one of your presidential candidates and a recent violent incident.
Mhm.
That was the huge event.
Okay. And so, from your perspective, what do we need to understand about that experience? Did that shift things? Um, was it an awakening that happened? Was it just, what was that
It,
experience for?
it shifted on many levels. The popular level, which is the general like human awareness, was uh, enthralled by it. Um, it has definitely changed the opinions of most. Um, so it had an effect in that way. It also had an effect on the darker forces and the nefarious forces behind the scenes. Um, this event sent shockwaves out, not only through your planet, but through the universe as one of those distress calls. It's happened before in history, and this was that event to bring more awareness to the detrimental time that you are experiencing in your world. Uh, Previously, we've used the term tipping point, and we're going to use that phrase again because we feel this is a very important and crucial time for humanity's awareness of their own sovereignty. No matter how much you like him versus the other person or vice versa, it's not about the person, it's about what the individual stands for, and that's independence and freedom. And that's what this movement is all about. You don't need him to have independence and freedom.
Very good. Very good. Is there anything else happening behind the scenes that you can share with us? Anything to help us to know what to expect moving into the last half of this year?
The dark forces that dominate are going to be more obvious with their intentions. They are not hiding it anymore, and that is a a big thing that we want to bring to people's awareness because it's easily dismissed when it's right in front of your face. Some may think, oh, that's not possible. They would never say they're going to do that and then actually do it. We are would ask those to be mindful and aware of what's being said and what's being proposed or what is actually happening. They have every intent to deliver on any promises that they make. But the most important aspect of it is your participation. They can propose, they can try, they can even attempt to force, but your participation is the key. And when people stop participating and start saying no, is when you'll see big changes. And the more people say no, the more you'll see this shift in society, those who love to be controlled and need to be controlled, moving into their fake world of technology versus those who embrace true humanity and living in harmony with nature on the path of ascension.
Wonderful. Are there any final messages that you have for us today? Anything else that you'd like to share with those who are listening?
We encourage you to create community. We feel this is the most important message to share at this time. Support each other, love each other, learn how to grow vegetables together, turn off the TV at night together, do all those things together. You sit outside and have conversation versus sitting in your house with all the lights on after dark. Make those small changes, and we assure you you'll see massive changes in your health and well-being and in your spirituality.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all that you've brought through today. We are so appreciative. Beginning to stretch your arms and legs, moving your hands and feet. Yeah, that was really good. That was so interesting. I couldn't figure
Was
out.
it?
I was like, where are we going with this tower thing?
It was interesting.
Yeah,
I wish I was an artist because I would love to draw the things
yeah,
that I see. Before I forget, the thing with the superimposed earth,
yeah,
they were like I've seen that image before where I
yeah,
see earth and then it just looks like this dark shadowy earth that's like right next to it. It's really strange. And I think
yeah,
that's the image of the simulation, like it's somehow plugged into real Earth.
yeah.
So weird.
Um, there's someone that I follow. Oh gosh, what is her name? I can't think of it. But she talks a lot about this being like an infected simulation, like a virus. It's
Yeah.
literally she talks about it like a computer program, just like they did.
Yeah.
And it was infected, and now we're trying to clean up. But she talks about like copies of Earth being made, and like this copy was erased, and then this copy
Wow.
now. It's interesting to think of like the cataclysms and the things that happen. And I almost wonder if that's from her perception, how her guides are bringing it through. That's when things get like erased and start over. It's like the
Yeah.
drive is wiped clean and let's try it
And
again.
start over. That's what it felt like this whole and how every time it changes just a little bit.
Yeah,
And I don't know if I articulated it that way, but what I was feeling and seeing was that like each time this reset happens, the souls that keep coming back here,
yeah,
you retain that knowledge in at the soul level, and it's just easier and easier to access it. I mean, we
yeah,
accessed it now, so
right.
the normies today, maybe the next go around will access it faster. They'll be
Yeah,
us the
that's what
next
I
go.
was thinking because it's like, so the star seeds are here right now incarnated into the human bodies, but we're holding that higher dimensional knowledge. And it's almost like the way that I see it is we're feeding it into the grid system.
Mhm.
So for others to access. So that's what I was thinking, for those who still have to continue on, I don't think it's going to be quite as difficult
Yeah, I hope
as it
not.
is here now with all of the control. It feels like the control is going to be wiped away,
They need
but
to.
there's still going to be the difficulties of Earth because that's part of this experience, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's the perception that I was getting. And then
Yeah.
that like aerial view, God, I wish I was an artist. That I really do. So the different like lands, it
Hmm.
almost looked like, and I hate to use the flat Earth map as an example, but very similar to that
Yeah.
where we're here and that's all we know, but then there's all these other little like mini islands, continents, and all these other places, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
And we don't, they know we're here. We don't know they're there, which is so
Yeah.
bizarre.
Well, it's kind of like you think of like the galactic beings. They
Yeah,
know we're here, but we
yeah,
don't know they're there.
right, right.
We're just isolated from everything.
Everything. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
then that shift of those who take the path of technology versus those who don't. You know when you see those like night like aerial view maps of a country and you see like the cities how they're all bright and light and then the rest of it's dark, that's essentially what I was seeing. And there
Yeah.
was just these few pockets. I'm thinking it's the 15-minute city concept where they're just gonna
Oh,
put
yeah.
on their VI virtual reality goggles, go in, and you're screwed.
Never
Like you're
coming
not getting
out.
out of there. That's scary.
Interesting. I was
That
thinking of
scared the
our
shit out of me.
I was thinking of our VR set and the kids just bought or they bought a brand new one and then not long after it just died. And we never got it fixed. So I'm like, I think the guides were like, put that
Nope.
down. But it's so cool. It's such a cool
Yeah,
thing. But
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know. Was that the point they were making? Like that, those are the steps in that direction of getting used to this, I don't know, this technology
I
bubble.
think it is. I think it's all getting you used to it because
Yeah.
even what Meta came out with all that virtual world and virtual business and virtual everything, and it's just getting
Virtual
you
workout.
used to just
Yeah.
being like contained.
I saw
Like,
a video of some guy with like the goggles on, like playing fake tennis. Go to a tennis court and play real tennis. Like
right.
what's
Well,
the, I
fake
don't get
tennis
it.
is fun to play. I will say that because
It is fun. It is. It's easier.
but not
It's
when you
definitely easier.
get so absorbed in it. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I could just download all the images that I see.
absolutely.
It'd be
Yeah. Oh
easier.
my goodness. Right.